Good evening. Welcome to the Bankers Hill Community Group Candidates Forum for Council District 3 and San Diego Mayor. I'm Nancy Moores, Vice Chair of the Bankers Hill Community Group. With our partners at the League of Women Voters, we are presenting these two forums tonight and another evening of forums for the 53rd Congressional District seat and San Diego City Attorney on Monday, October 19th. Please stay tuned as we plan to return to our regular meeting schedule. However, it will be by a virtual platform in November, and hopefully we'll be able to meet again in person soon. I'd like to thank our steering committee who has continued to respond to the issues that affect our neighborhood and the city at large during these past 7 months that we have not been able to meet as a group. Thank you, Amy Hayes, our chair, Jeannie Rawlings, our treasurer, John Lamb, secretary, Ben Baltic, John Percy, Ann Garwood, Charlou Benedict, Rebecca Veen, and Jim Frost. Thank you to our Council District 3 candidates, Toni Duran and Stephen Whitburn, and San Diego's candidates for mayor, Barbara Bree and Todd Gloria, for participating tonight. And a huge thanks to the League of Women Voters for facilitating a fair and equal forum. Lastly, as of this morning, we had over 228 people register for tonight's forum. This is a record number for the Bankers Hill Community Group and the League of Women Voters. Interest in the 2020 election is incredibly high. Your ballots will begin arriving in the first week of October. Please vote early by mail or in person on election day. If you haven't registered to vote, please do. Your vote is incredibly important. Stay safe and well. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to the League of Women Voters. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gail Mackler, and I'm with the League of Women Voters here in San Diego, and I'm going to be your moderator tonight for this virtual candidate forum. Now, even though we are going to miss seeing you in person, we are reaching more people via Zoom who can hear directly from the candidates to help make this important decision on the ballot. The League is very proud to be nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties, but always working on vital issues of concern to members and to our public. Our Voters Edge website is your online resource for more information about the candidates, the ballot issues, and detailed voting information. You can go to the Voters Edge. It's votersedge.org/CA to get information. You can get your address to get a personalized ballot. You can get in-depth information on candidates and measures and who supports them. You can check where and when and how to vote, and you can keep track of your choices and how you want and how you use them to vote. So it's a very helpful website, and we encourage our candidates to all register on this website. It's free, it's no cost to them, and it's a great way to get your information out to the public. The League moderates candidate forums using a format that is fair and balanced, yet informative. We have asked the candidates to keep to the issues on their positions rather than personal attacks, because our goal is for the voters to be able to learn more about the candidates than they get from campaign ads and social media. All the candidates for the local offices, as I said, have been invited to put their information on the Voters Edge. Now, we're recording this forum tonight, and it will be available unedited from beginning to end on our website, lwvsandiego.org. We have asked the attendees, you folks, to submit questions online before the forum. You can also ask questions using the link provided in the chat box. You can submit questions or you can look at the questions. Please remember to use civility and respect in wording your questions and frame them so that the candidates can answer. Now, the questions are organized to assure topics of greatest interest. Let me tell you who is helping us tonight here at the League. Assisting the League are the two questionnaires, Fran Wedemeyer and Beryl Fromm, and our tech guru who holds this and puts this all together for us and who has done a fantastic job is Kim Knox. The Bankers Hill Community Group, we have gotten help from Amy Hayes, and she has been a big help in organizing questions that are important for your district. Thank you very much, Amy. The timekeeper for the league is Scarlett Lopez, and we plan to adjourn by 7 p.m. We do ask you to stay tuned at 7, though, because you can then watch the mayoral forum with Todd, Gloria, and Barbara Bree. That's going to follow this forum immediately. The San Diego City Council, District 3, our candidates are Toni Duran and Stephen Whitburn. Before we met with you this evening, we chose an order of starting. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, 2 minutes for a closing statement, but 1 minute to answer each question. And we have asked them to please keep to the time constraints. And now for our opening statement, let's start with Toni. Good evening.
Right. Good evening, everyone. It's amazing to see how many folks are signed on to the Zoom, but it doesn't surprise me because the Bankers Hill Community Group always had a lot of people attending their regular monthly meetings. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for moderating, and to the Bankers Hill Community Group for putting this together. So my name is Toni Duran. For the last 7 years, I've actually worked in the State Assembly and State Senate under Senate President Pro Tem Tony Atkins. I've been a community and district representative, and for about five of those 7 years, I actually represented the neighborhoods of District 3. So I'm sure many of you recognize me from being at your meetings on a regular basis. And working through this pandemic, we've really learned that in order to address our economy, our climate, homelessness, our housing crisis, in order to really address these crucial, critical issues, we need to be flexible, adaptable, and innovative. And like I said, working through this pandemic and serving the community of District 3 for so long, I believe it's made me very uniquely qualified to run, and I really look forward to being your next city council member so I can continue to represent you, but in a bigger way. It's going to take all of us working together to build a better San Diego and to really get over this pandemic. I know it's been really hard for a lot of folks. I've been working with people on a daily basis to get them connected to the resources that they need, whether it be they have food insecurities, they're unsure about what their housing is going to look like, or they need to get income from EDD. So I look forward to having a bigger conversation tonight, and thank you again.
Thank you. Stephen.
Well, thank you very much, Gail, and thank you, Nancy, who opened up tonight, and all the volunteers behind the scenes who are keeping the program running. Big thanks to the Bankers Hill Community Group for sponsoring our forum this evening, and of course to the League of Women Voters for facilitating it. And mostly thanks to everybody who is joining us tonight. I mean, it's quite a turnout, a record turnout as we heard, and it just goes to show what an engaged neighborhood Bankers Hill is, not only in District 3, but citywide. And there's a reason for that. There's a lot to love in Bankers Hill, from Balboa Park being across the street, to Maple Canyon, which is a gem, all of the historic homes and other buildings in Bankers Hill, the wonderful businesses, the terrific people. There's so much about Bankers Hill that keeps people engaged and caring about the neighborhood. And as we all know, there are plenty of challenges. Homelessness has gotten worse over the years. There are a lot of concerns that I share about the neighborhood not being consulted often enough when it comes to important decisions made by the city that affect our communities. And of course, we're all concerned about the condition of our parks and our canyons. It's going to take leadership to address the problems that the city faces, whether it's neighborhood issues or whether it's the macro issues brought upon us by COVID-19 and the devastation it's wreaked upon people's health and upon people's finances. I was a regional director for the American Cancer Society and the American Red Cross. I was an executive director for San Diego Pride. I've served on boards of directors and city committees ranging from the San Diego Human Dignity Foundation to the American Civil Liberties Union to the North Park Planning Committee. And I'm looking forward to putting my background and experience to work for Bankers Hill. I hope that I can earn your support tonight, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's start off with a few budget questions. I will start with you, Stephen, since Toni started off our opening statements. How has COVID impacted your vision of addressing the housing crisis in San Diego?
Sure. Housing and homelessness are interrelated. And I think that for starters, I like what the city is doing right now in terms of using largely state money, in addition to some money from the Housing Commission and some of the city's own funds to purchase inexpensive motels. It's a rather cost-effective way of creating inexpensive housing for people who are currently homeless. That is one tool at our disposal. I think that the idea behind tiny homes and some of the other innovative ideas to create housing are also going to be important. But what the COVID-19 crisis has demonstrated is just how vulnerable people are. That is why it's going to be my #1 priority as a council member to address homelessness and address the housing crisis, because quality of life starts with housing.
Thank you. Toni?
Gail, yeah, so as I've said, I'm talking to people on a daily basis who for the last 6 months have been worried that they weren't going to be able to pay their rent or pay their mortgage. The fact that through the city and the state, we were able to have an eviction moratorium on the books quickly to address these issues. It just goes to show that housing is still an important issue and a crisis that we're in. Even more so now. So we do have a lot of folks that are in expensive rental units, expensive condos. The price to purchase a home in San Diego is incredibly high if you don't have the resources. And so even though we're in this pandemic, it shows us that we need to do everything we can to build more housing that's affordable for lower income and our middle income working class families.
Thank you. Next question, which is also on COVID and expenses. It's another budget. It's more specific. How should the budget be adjusted to accommodate additional COVID expenses? We'll start with you this time, Toni. How should the budget be?
Yeah, so through the city, we've had like a $300 million budget discrepancy, like 54 billion through the state. And we've seen that with these budget shortfalls, we've really had to look closely at where we're putting our funding. And where we're putting our funding is services to ensure that our residents are taken care of, to ensure that we have protections for our businesses and for our homes, and also ensuring that we can keep libraries active. So folks that don't have the privilege or the access to the internet can still, go sit outside a library. So I know some libraries are open a little bit, but we really have to focus our funding towards making sure that as residents and as a city and businesses that we're able to survive.
Stephen?
Well, as I said, COVID-19 has really exposed some vulnerabilities. Fortunately, so far, the city has been the beneficiary of many millions of dollars from the federal government in COVID-19 relief funds. And those are helping at the moment to provide some stability to people who are in danger of losing their homes, as well as some others. But long term, what we're going to have to do is get the economy up and running. And I think that there are two areas that we really need to focus on. One of them is tourism. I would immediately be ramping up our tourism spending, particularly to attract people to San Diego in a safe way from some of the surrounding cities, because those external dollars are really going to help bring capital into the city. And a little bit longer term, I think it's going to be really important to attract new businesses, particularly life sciences and tech businesses, to the downtown area that will help to grow our economy long term.
Also in this COVID section, I'd like to ask a question. It seems as though I'm not sure that the city council or in the mayor's office can do anything to address this, but I'm sure you're aware that there has now been an increase in COVID cases on some of our campuses, our university campuses here in San Diego. Is there anything, I'll start with you, Steve, is there anything that the city can do, or is that going to be something totally coming from the county or the state?
Well, no, there are things that the city can do. Most of the actual healthcare matters are addressed by the county and by the state. But the city of San Diego has resources for external communications and for advertising and social media. And in the case of the students at San Diego State, I mean, we were all 18 and 19 once, and some of the behaviors that are occurring right now have not been ones that are conducive to not spreading COVID-19. So the city of San Diego really should be putting out information about best practices on behaviors and advising people what are some of the things that spread COVID-19, and that kind of educational resource the city absolutely can provide and hopefully keep down some of the numbers of these cases on San Diego State University and elsewhere.
Thank you. Toni?
Yeah, we're in a crisis. We are in a state of emergency, and while the county of San Diego, their focus is on health and human services. We still, as a city, can be and should be a good partner right alongside with them, doing everything we can to help address the issues, help address information, get information out to our communities that surround our college campuses. I know a lot of community groups have reached out to, for example, to San Diego State to ask, what can they do to stay safe? And making sure that we're connecting with San Diego State itself too, to get that information out to our communities, to let them know how they can stay safe, what the college campuses are doing to ensure that their students are staying safe and getting the health care that they need.
Thank you. This is the last question in our health section. To you first, Toni. What is your position on the expansion of wireless infrastructure in the city and in your district, and the health issues it may represent to our communities?
That's a very interesting question, and I have to tell you, that's the first time that's come up in these forums. This is something brand new that we've been talking about. I know it's something that does scare folks. So as a city council member, my first duty is to make sure that I'm completely in the loop and make sure I have all of the information that I need to make good decisions on behalf of our communities, and also to make sure that information is given out to our neighborhoods. Information, communication, transparency, these are such important issues. And we've seen sometimes that our city maybe does not follow through as well as far as transparency and communication goes. Just because it's something that we've had issues with in the past doesn't mean that we can't fix it in the future. So as your council member, I will be sure to have all the information I need to make a good decision to make sure that we're all staying safe.
Thank you. Stephen, what is your position on these expansions of wireless infrastructure?
Sure. Technology is so important to the city, both in terms of communications, but also in terms of economic growth. And I think that we really need to be focused on technology. And one of the staff positions that I will have on the city council, I'll have somebody who is focused on technology. And I'm going to want that person to be very cognizant of the sorts of new technologies that are coming into our neighborhoods and whether or not they pose a health issue. I think we need to refer to the science, we need to refer to the data. If there are legitimate concerns about health issues caused by technology, then we need to be on top of that. We need to protect people's health. But if it has been shown that certain technologies are perfectly safe, then of course we want to advance technology in our community as much as we possibly can.
Thank you. You mentioned how beautiful the district is, and there are actually quite a few questions in our Parks and Recreation section. The first one, how do you plan to address the issue of the unsightly dead palm trees of Maple Canyon?
Well, I think that we need to devote more resources to our Park and Recreation Department. I think that it has been underfunded, and I think that we've seen the results not only in Maple Canyon, but in Balboa Park. So really what has to happen is we need to get more resources involved in these situations. One of the areas that I want to turn to is Sandag. Sandag is looking at doing, putting trolley service actually up around Balboa Park. We'll see if that goes through, but if it does, I think that Sandag should bear some of the cost for some of the improvements that we need to put in this area. And certainly Maple Canyon and Balboa Park, both of which attract people to the area, ought to be upgraded.
I have a follow-up to that, but I'm going to wait till after Toni answers that question about the unsightly dead palm trees in Maple Canyon. Very specific
Right.
question.
Yeah, no, these are quality of life issues that are exactly the type to be addressed in the budget as well. Somebody may not think that is, but our canyon lands, we have a lot of folks that are really worried about fires in our canyons. We know that fire season is all year round in the state of California. We have fires around the state already. We had huge fires recently close by. So ensuring that things like palm trees are cleaned up, that is important in order to make sure that we're keeping our canyons and our neighborhoods safe. I know right now that our palm trees are facing bug infestation, which we need to take care of so our trees don't die, because besides the fact that they're beautiful, they also help with our climate and keeping us cool.
Thank you. So I'm going to put these two questions together because we both have referred already to Balboa Park, which is, I'll start with you, Toni. What is your solution to the long deferred maintenance in Balboa Park? And do you support commercialization or corporate branding in Balboa Park?
Right. We call it our crown jewel. We have people from all around coming to visit Balboa Park. All of us visit Balboa Park for the arts and culture, and it's a beautiful place to be. But no, I don't believe that it should be commercialized. I do not believe that we need to have corporate sponsorship, plastered up on our buildings. In the past, we have been able to advocate on behalf of San Diego to get money from the state budget to address some of these issues, some of these infrastructure issues. Now, that's definitely something that we will continue to do in the future. Yes, we are in a budget shortfall, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to stop fighting for Balboa Park. So I want to help connect with philanthropy more as well, and have a better eye on the penny for the arts.
Thank you. Stephen, what is your solution to the long deferred maintenance, and what do you think about commercialization or corporate branding?
No commercialization in Balboa Park. You will recall that the city administration put forward a request for proposals to develop Inspiration Point, and one of the options that it presented was putting a hotel there. I was opposed to that idea, and publicly so. Parkland is parkland and should remain public and parkland. As far as the millions and millions of dollars of deferred maintenance, I'll go back to what I was talking about a moment ago. We need innovative solutions. That deferred maintenance has been there for how many decades now? Sandag wants to attract people to Balboa Park so that more people are using transit. And it intends to bring more transit to the Balboa Park area. Well, I want to work with Sandag to have them use a piece of that $177 billion they're talking about to address the deferred maintenance in Balboa Park.
Thank you. Another last question, I believe, on Balboa Park. If elected, would you support closing the Cabrillo Bridge to auto traffic on the weekends? Stephen?
I'm open to it. I don't, I haven't taken a specific position on that. I understand that there are some concerns in the neighborhood around traffic issues and parking issues. But here's what I'll say about my approach to those sorts of problems. When there is a proposal, I think it's really important that there be a public hearing and that people have an opportunity to express their viewpoint on it before I take a position on something like that. You know, when we're talking about issues that have moral values, you know, that's something that I ought to be getting out in front of. But neighborhood sorts of decisions, one of my biggest frustrations is that so often decisions are made before the neighborhood has a chance to weigh in. If there's a move to close the Cabrillo Bridge on weekends, let's talk about it as a neighborhood. We'll hear what people say, and then I'll make a decision on how I feel.
Thank you. Toni, how do you feel about that Cabrillo Bridge?
Yeah, this is actually a question that popped up in our forum last year as well. And I personally think it would be a great idea. You know, we're addressing safety. We're allowing people to get out of their cars and walk the entire bridge, not just on the small sidewalk areas. And I know that there is support out there for that. This kind of goes in with what we're doing now with the slow streets, where there are some areas of San Diego where a street may be closed off for a short time to residents, so folks can walk and ride their bikes freely and safely. But absolutely, it's a conversation to keep open as well, to make sure that we are having that input from our residents. But you know, just like you said, it would just be on the weekend. I think it's a place to start, and I think it's something that we could also try out to see if it works.
Thank you. Last question in Park and Recs. We got a lot of questions about this. And 1 second. We got a lot of questions about this. And I'm condensing them all down to one question, which is, as our representative to the City Council District 3, will you revisit the use of the Olive Street Park for a regional AIDS memorial? I understand this has been a very controversial issue. Toni?
Yes, I was actually in a lot of those meetings with the Bankers Hill Community Group when that conversation was coming up. I know that we've been working for decades to get an AIDS memorial. I also know that the mayor's office ended up making a quick decision. You know, it was an existing deal to do that moving forward. But I also understand, and I completely agree, you know, when community members say, maybe it's not the best place, and not because of what it is, but just for lack of access. You know, we want more folks to be able to access a memorial like that. And we also want to make sure that the folks in Bankers Hill have nice little parks and little recreation areas. So I would definitely want to revisit moving that to a better area, and definitely a conversation to keep open to make it a better spot to be.
Thank you. Stephen, Olive Street Park.
Sure, yes, it has been very controversial. There is a lawsuit currently around that location, particularly as it regards to environmental mitigation. The current council office is involved in that project as well. You know, we need more parkland. We need more parks. We need a memorial to the many, many thousands of people who died from that horrible disease. And, you know, having a park in that location, having a memorial in that location may be perfectly appropriate. I know that one of the real concerns that has been expressed is traffic. And, you know, how many people is it going to attract? I would be surprised if it attracts the many thousands of people at one time that some people seem to be concerned that it might. But above all, I want to hear what the neighborhood has to say. And if it lands in my lap as a council member, that's how we'll approach it.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go from Parks and Recs to inside houses. This is the housing category. What is your position on Airbnb regulations, and how do you plan to enforce the existing and new regulations?
Sure. Airbnb, short-term vacation rentals, one of the hottest issues in our city right now. And much of the emotion around it stems from the egregious noise violations that oftentimes occur. I have a good friend who lives in Normal Heights, who's a teacher, who has a home whose backyard backs up to another backyard that has a swimming pool in it. And when it's rented out to Airbnb, there's parties in that swimming pool at 3 in the morning and he can barely sleep. So we've got to address that. It gets to the heart of people's quality of life. I believe that what we ought to do is levy a fee on each and every short-term vacation rental, have the proceeds of that fee be dedicated specifically to the enforcement of neighborhood quality of life issues that are caused by the existence of those short-term vacation rentals, so we can crack down on those bad actors.
Thank you. Toni, Airbnb
So-
regulations.
Yes, short-term vacation rentals have actually been coming up a lot in conversation when I'm talking with voters throughout the district. And the fact that we don't really have enforceable regulations, there are some regulations out there. There are some, questions on what more regulations we need, but we need clear regulations, enforceable regulations, and we need people in place that actually can go out and make sure that those regulations are enforced, because we want folks to be good neighbors. We don't, we want to make sure that people who are doing it right, folks that own their own home and they're renting out a room in their home, or it's helping them pay their mortgage through. We want to make sure that people that are doing it right keep doing it right, but that the bad actors, they're the ones that we say, no, you got to go.
Thank you. What exactly would be your approach to address affordable housing crisis, and how would it directly impact our community? Toni.
Yes, affordable housing is, gosh, we have a housing crisis, especially when it comes to affordable housing for middle income folks, middle income families, our blue collar workers, lower income folks. We are definitely not in short supply of luxury housing, and it seems like that is predominantly what we're building. We need to make sure that we have more access, and we have more conversations with folks to bring to us their plans to build that middle income housing. We want to make sure that our teachers and our essential workers, our safety professionals, that they can actually live in the area where they serve, that they can actually live close to home, because not only does that help make better neighborhoods and better neighbors, but it also helps address our climate crisis. So there you go. Just saw it turning red.
Stephen, the housing crisis.
Sure. We have had a crisis of affordable housing for many, many years in San Diego, both with income restricted housing and middle income housing affordable to working professionals. And we have not solved the problem. We've added some affordable housing, but nowhere near enough. So I think what we need to do is look to see what other cities are doing. How are they addressing the problem? And there has been some success. In cities like Portland and Seattle and Minneapolis and New York City, they're using property tax exemptions to actually entice builders to build affordable housing. What happens is if they agree to build more affordable housing than they're required, then they get a property tax exemption on those units. It's an incentive for them. Ultimately, it results in more housing being built, and at the end of the road, more property tax revenue for the city. It's a win-win. We should take a look at it.
Thank you. Stephen, to you. Should council members vote however they want on proposed projects in Uptown, or should they follow the Uptown Community Plan policies? Please explain.
Well, typically the matters that come before the city council are when there are proposed deviations to the community plan. If a project is going to follow a community plan to the letter, then oftentimes it is by right, and the developer does not need to seek approval from the city council. When it comes to the city council is when there is a variance from it. And in those situations, I think it's really important that the council member, and certainly what I will do, is proactively reach out to the neighborhood and let them know about this variance and get input on it. I think too often people in the neighborhoods don't even know about a project that's being proposed until it's almost been approved. So we need to get in front of those, involve our neighborhoods more, and get neighborhood input on the decisions that are made at City Hall.
Thank you. Toni, should the council members vote however they want?
It's not a matter of voting however you want. It sounds almost absurd to me, because our job as a council member is to vote in the best interest of our communities and vote in the best interest of our city. And so, we have community plans, we get them updated every now and then, and we look at changes that need to be made to address issues that come up in different neighborhoods and different crises as well. But a lot of times too, these go in front of community planning groups. And so part of one of the things that I will be doing when I'm in council is making sure that people are aware of these planning groups in their neighborhoods, how they can connect, how they can give their input, and help them to not only get that information from the planning group, but us as the council member get that information out to the communities so they know what kind of conversations are happening and what would be coming in front of city council for a vote.
Thank you. We're going to switch to more general political questions. Toni, are the legislative and executive branches balanced under the strong mayor form of government that we have?
No, not at all. We saw recently during the budget talks at the city that for the first time, we have folks that are listening and calling in, people from around the neighborhoods talking about what they want, what they need, and what they see with the budget that's proposed. And we saw that a lot of council members voted in such a way because they knew with the strong mayor form of government, I don't want to say it didn't matter how they were going to vote, but there was going to be so much pushback from the mayor's office and threats as well to their own budgets for their neighborhoods and for their district. So definitely the strong mayor form of government is not equal. I don't think it serves the community well, and I hope that there's a way we can look at that and step away from it.
Thank you. Stephen, what do you think about the legislative and executive branches balanced under the strong mayor form of government?
Well, in theory, it was set up as a strong mayor, strong council form of government, and that the city council is supposed to be a co-equal branch of the city government. Unfortunately, the city council has not exercised its power. The city council has power that it just doesn't use, and it is too deferential to the executive branch. I mean, we certainly saw that with 101 Ash Street. We saw that with the Homeless Navigation Center. The city council is not there to be a rubber stamp. The city council is there to provide checks and balances on the administration, and also to put forward its own policy proposals and to represent the neighborhoods that it represents. So I will be a strong council member on the city council. Let's put it that way.
Thank you. How do the two of you feel about supporting clean elections as a future ballot measure? Stephen, your answer first.
I have endorsed clean elections. I think it's very important. Money in politics is very, very problematic. And I think that clean elections, which has been implemented successfully elsewhere, levels the playing field. It allows more people to get involved and engaged and run for office. I think we need that. It allows for more diversity among candidates, and it allows for a more equitable communication of people's viewpoints, because the playing field is leveled a little bit when the money is taken out of politics. So I have endorsed that measure, both very specifically locally and more broadly nationally. I think it would be a great advantage to our city in the way that it has helped other cities around the country.
Thank you. Toni, clean elections, how do you feel about that?
Funny you should ask. So as a woman, as a Latina, as a lower income person, I know how difficult it can be to, especially to run a first time race when there's so much attention put on how much money you can raise, how much money you can give to your own campaign. There's such a money focus that people lose focus of the issues. And so clean elections does level that playing field. We'll start seeing more people of color. We'll start seeing more diversity. We'll start seeing more women. We'll start finally seeing, especially in San Diego, transgender folks running. We're going to see more folks actually run for office because they don't have that fear that they can't raise enough money. And they can just, with clean elections, they can just completely focus on the issues and talking to constituents.
Thank you. Since we're talking about money in politics, this is a question. How do you intend to balance the needs of your constituents with the pressure of big donors?
Well, luckily, especially in a city race, the max donation you can receive is $600. And somebody giving me a donation does not mean that they now have a say over how I will help to govern the city. You know, those donations are supposed to be there to help us get into office, help us represent our community members, and the fact that has been used as a tool in the past, even now in various elections, city, state, federal. Shucks, look at our presidential races. We have to take that out of the equation. So my decisions are not going to be made on threats of donor or no donor. Like I said, this is about constituents, our neighborhoods in the city of San Diego.
Thank you. Stephen, how do you intend to balance the needs of your constituents with the pressure of big donors?
Well, I think the most important thing that someone can do is to be transparent and upfront about what you believe. And I have been active in San Diego community issues for 20 years now. And I have been outspoken in my advocacy for our neighborhoods and for many others. And so people know where I stand. And if a donor wants to contribute to my campaign, I appreciate that. But they also know where I stand. So when I'm on the city council, because I have acted with integrity and transparency the entire time I've been involved in the community, there will be no reason for me to change and be anything but transparent and acting with integrity on the city council.
And Stephen, how would you prioritize policies surrounding climate change, environmental sustainability, and/or green jobs?
Well, it has to be a top priority, and I've made it a top priority. It's one of the reasons why I'm endorsed by the Sierra Club. I'm also endorsed by the Climate Defenders Action Fund. Both of those organizations looked at the candidates and understood that I will advocate most vigorously for our environment and for our climate. Our future depends on it. Our grandchildren, our planet depends on our stepping up to this. The city of San Diego has a very good climate action plan. The problem is that we don't fully fund it. We have fallen behind in funding it, and therefore we've fallen behind in achieving its goals. I have stated repeatedly that I will ensure that we fully fund our climate action plan so that we can stay on top of those goals and execute the terrific climate action plan that we actually have.
Toni?
That was a long question. Would you mind repeating it? I want to make sure I hit all the points.
And let me see. How would you plan to prioritize policies surrounding climate change, environmental sustainability, and/or green jobs?
Right. Thank you. So that all ties into sustainability. It ties into a lot of times systemic racism. You know, we see a lot of times it's our lower income communities that are affected more negatively when we don't address our climate issues that we have, when we don't address green jobs, when we're not addressing green transportation as well. It's so important that we address this. We don't move it and kick it down the road again, because we only have one planet. And we've already seen, especially the last 6 months when we've been staying at home under the stay-at-home order, that our environment has been changing rapidly. We have moments when our air quality gets better, and then the moments when it changes to be worse because of the fires that we're facing.
Thank you. Do you support entering into a new long-term contract with SDG&E, or is it time for the city to go a different way? What would you propose? Toni?
So I know this is a conversation that's been happening for a while now. That was a very long conversation at City Council. We had a lot of folks calling in. We had workers and labor unions calling in saying, you know, we want to keep our good jobs. We had environmentalists calling in saying we want to address our climate. And the thing is, when talking about this partnership, we can have both. We can have good jobs and make sure that we're addressing our climate needs as well. Whether or not that's SDG&E or some other company, some other organization, whoever it's going to be, they need to make sure that they are paying into supporting our communities, having plans to move to more green and more electric energy, and also have ways and have plans in place to teach workers, you know, give them the education to move from a job when we're talking about gas to a job when we're talking about green electricity.
Thank you. Stephen?
I think there's a good possibility that the administration will extend the negotiations around the franchise agreement such that I will be voting on a contract. So I don't want to prejudge it in terms of a specific company. I think that would not be wise for me to do right now. But what I will say is that I think whatever contract we sign with whomever, it ought not be 50 years again. I think that's just too long for a franchise agreement. I definitely would like to see a shorter franchise agreement that would enable us to sort of keep whichever company we sign with, keep their feet to the fire, make sure that they execute the plan properly and are good partners with us. So that's what I'll be looking for.
Okay, I have so many other wonderful questions that people have submitted, but I have to leave time for your 2-minute closing statement. So maybe you could just answer kind of quickly this question. It's a broad question, but maybe you have a couple of points you'd like to make. What are your plans to make city operations more efficient overall? Stephen? Well,
there are some real examples of where we've got inefficiencies, and one of them is in the permitting process for many of our small businesses. I have a friend who's a small business owner here in District 3 who went to do a remodel of his business and started the permitting process. By the time he got the final permit for his simple remodel, the first permit had expired. That's how inefficient and how problematic some of those things are. So I think that we need to make sure that we have the right staff and sufficient staff to process some of these permits and make them more efficient for people. and generally be keeping our pressuring the administration because ultimately these things report to the mayor's office, pressuring the administration to be good stewards of our taxpayer dollars and operating an efficient way for the taxpayers, small businesses, and everyone else.
Thank you. Toni?
So you asked for a quick answer. I'm going to give you hopefully about half that. One of the things we need to do is listen to our city workers. They already know what part of the process, what part of the red tape that we have going in these with these permits that we don't need. There is plenty that we can cut out. I've seen folks go through that process, and there is so much red tape that does not need to be there. Our city workers already know what we need, what we can do, and what we need to do to cut that. And then we just need to ensure that we have folks in place to take care of the permits on a quicker basis. And let's get it all out the door.
Thank you. Now, before you give your closing statement, I just have a couple of quick announcements, which is that I want to thank everybody for coming and attending and asking such good questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of them. Make sure you're registered to vote and that your address is correct. And it's critical that everyone fill out the census form. And the links to assist you are posted in the chat box. And please don't forget, after this, we're going to start a mayor's candidate forum at 7 p.m. that you can watch with both, of course, Todd, Gloria, and Barbara Breen. We hope that you will attend more league events. And now for the closing statement, I hope that you will include once again what experiences you bring to the challenges of this office and how that will benefit the city. And I believe we'll start with Stephen, since Toni, you did the opening statement first. Stephen?
Thank you very much, Gail, and thank you for doing such a fine job of moderating our forum tonight. Thanks again to the League of Women Voters for coordinating this, and to the Bankers Hill Community Group for sponsoring it. And most importantly, thanks to the many scores of people who tuned in tonight to hear what we had to say. Really appreciate that. There are so many issues, as we've talked about tonight, and many that we didn't even get to, that the City Council is going to have to address. Neighborhood issues, the issues caused by COVID-19 in terms of the devastating effects on people's health and on our economy. The ongoing issues of homelessness and housing and the condition of our streets and sidewalks and Balboa Park and so many more. We could go on and on. If there were ever a time when we need proven, experienced leadership at City Hall, now is the time. I'm the candidate who has run an organization, who has led a staff, who has balanced an organizational budget. I was a regional director of the American Cancer Society and the American Red Cross. I was executive director of San Diego Pride. I've served on boards of directors. I've served on city committees. I have the background that will allow me to be effective on day one, and that's what we need. And that's why every organization that has interviewed the candidates and made an endorsement in this race has endorsed my campaign. And I'm very honored by that. But organizations don't vote. People do. And it would be a real honor to me to repeat what happened in the primary. In the primary, the people of Bankers Hill voted for me in the election in March, and I would be so grateful to have your vote again in November. Again, I'm Stephen Whitburn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. Toni?
Gail, thank you again for being our moderator tonight. This is all very, very calm and very open. I love the questions that the folks at Bankers Hill have. It shows that you're not just thinking about your own neighborhood, but you're thinking about your city as a whole. And that's so important to me because I love this city. I love this district. The reason I'm running for office is because I want to continue to do the work that I have been doing the past 7 years, working with you and being your representative and making sure that your voice is heard, to make sure that decision makers bring you into the process. Communication and transparency hasn't always been the best work done at the city. Too often I sit in community meetings and folks are finding out for the first time that something's about to happen to their neighborhood. rather than the first conversations about what we can do with you to do things for your neighborhood. And so, like I said, 7 years I've been a part of this community, doing work directly with organizations, doing the work directly with our community groups and our community leaders and the neighbors that maybe you don't even know their name. But that's what's important, that every person has a say. Everybody knows that their voice will be heard. And that's the only way we're going to move our city forward. That's the only way we're going to, get through this is together. And so that is why I believe that I am the most qualified candidate in this race. I've been there with you. I want to continue working with you. I know what it's like. I've experienced a lot of the same issues that you all have. We're going to address homelessness and housing, and we're going to do it together.
Great, thank you. Well, on behalf of the Bankers Hill Community Group and the League of Women Voters of San Diego, I want to thank both candidates very much for running for office and attending our forum this evening. And we thank all of you who have tuned in tonight that are following the League. We remind you once again, stay tuned for the Mayor's Forum, which is coming up next. Don't be just a voter, be an informed voter. Thank you very, very much.